Lunch Money Lambert, Jeff Malott. Welcome to the Kayak Bass Nation. Yeah. Welcome to the Kayak Bass Nation. Kayak Bass Nation. Hey. Welcome to the Kayak Bass Nation. Welcome to the Kayak Bass Nation. Welcome to the Kayak Bass Nation, where we talk about fishing and competition. It's your boy Ox Pippin, aka Ox Fishing. Don't come over here tripping. Hey, hope you enjoy the show. Jeff Malott, Lunch Money Lambert, Lego. Hey, welcome to the Kayak Bass Nation. Kayak Bass Nation. Welcome to the Kayak Bass Nation. Kayak Bass Nation. Hey, welcome to the Kayak Bass Nation. Welcome to the Kayak Bass Nation. Welcome to the Kayak Bass Nation.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to KBN Live, the first show of 2022. Happy New Year, everybody, and Happy New Year, Ryan. How you doing, man?
I see Cliff in the comments. He must be out of jail.
Yeah, he's got a Facebook by his name instead of YouTube. Shocking.
I like it.
Good. He's gonna get him a pro staff spot tonight. That's not what this is tonight, but maybe you can learn something.
Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe Cliff will drop just some insane knowledge, and Lilly will take notice and be like, I need this guy on the squad.
Yeah, maybe.
I like it.
2022. That'd be a heck of a start to the year.
We made it. It's a brand new year. What are your goals, Jeff? What are you trying to accomplish in this new year?
From a fishing perspective, same goal as last year, which I didn't hit, which is make TOC.
Okay.
Make TOC, and then just from a personal perspective, I don't know, just keep on keeping on, try to get in better shape as I approach my twilight years, and try to keep up with the young fellas. What about you, man?
Drink smaller bottles of vodka, so I've switched over to the airplane bottles to try to keep me down on the volume. So that's good.
That's it. That's how you do it.
I want to try to get this video stuff rolling on my own personal side. That's kind of one of my big things for 2022 is. Instead of talking, actually doing something about it. So here we go.
Man. Yeah, I saw your video drop the other day. Good stuff, man. Putting all that.
I want to try to keep that theme.
Use.
Yeah, I've got plenty of it. I might as well do something to benefit myself a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, and if you guys have over on YouTube, especially in the audio podcast, I always put the links to Ryan and I's personal stuff down at the bottom of the podcast description, and it's got links to his YouTube, my YouTube, Instagram, all that stuff there. So make sure you click on that and check it out. Ryan's got professional level quality videos turning out, and I've got mediocre content. So you're welcome to check out them both and go over there and give them a click. I actually have a fun little series I've started this winter on our local lake that you guys might want to check out. So good stuff.
I like it.
Yeah. Ryan Van Tyne said that's called spam. That's all right, though.
I hope you like it.
It's fresh spam. So we've got Jameson Redding from Jackson on tonight. He's going to talk about his new show, and then we've got Ryan Lilly from Old Town coming in, the brand Evangelist from the team over there. Both of them we're going to kind of dig and talk about what they're looking for in ambassadors / pro staff people, and how companies view our sport through their lens. To us, everything's about kayak bass fishing tournaments and whatever, but how are they looking at sport from their side of things? So we're going to get into all of that, take questions from you guys. It should be a good time, don't you think?
Yeah, man.
But before we do that, we're going to talk about a few things that happened in the new year or the end of the old year. And to me, the headline was ACK kind of shutting down shop, and that coinciding with the demise of Cats, which is kind of the OG tournament series down in Texas. And I don't know all the details, but it was just kind of a shock to see both those things kind of happen at the same time.
Wasn't ACK Summit Sports bought them, right? Like 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. Right. That was I remember back in the day, it was always like ACK and Hook One were the two big dogs in the national sales market, and now both of them are gone. Mm-hmm. Isn't it crazy? And kayak sales are better than they've ever been. So it's kind of a slippery dynamic there. Like, how is the demand for these kayaks and the growth of the sport more and more and more? But it seems like on the business side, I don't know if it's more, absorption type deal or if contracts factor into that. But I mean, you just saw the two giants fall in the last, 16, 18 months. That's crazy.
Yeah, and Dale Griffin said it was strange, no notice, and they were making social media posts and all of a sudden, boom, it just happened. And I can tell you this, I had no relationship with anybody there. I didn't know them, but that's where I bought my first kayaks 11 years ago. I didn't know anything about kayak fishing. I got online, ordered 2 Wilderness Systems kayaks from Austin Canoe and Kayak online, and that's how I got into this sport.
That's where I bought my first one, was Hook One. I mean, that's how I knew they were in a contest with each other all the time.
Yeah, that actually started. Anyway, yeah, Hook One and ACK both gone. It's crazy, and I know ACK was sort of tied. I don't know that they started Cats, but they were very closely connected to Cats.
I mean, they were the big sponsor, right? Year in and year out.
So Cats is gone too, which is crazy because when I first started a trail here in Arkansas, I was watching them thinking, my God, if we could ever make it to that level where we're pulling 100 and something people a tournament, and that was before Tourney X or anything, they were doing all that.
And that's something that in the state of Tennessee we looked at, was how a trail of that size is that sustainable around a state. We kind of weighed the options. Do we want to try to pursue what Cats has, or do we want to keep it lower level grassroots and do individual clubs with a culmination? Hopefully we stick around, but I think there's room, especially in that area, for one big regional trail to kind of step in and take over, because it was wildly popular. I don't know how you could let that go and somebody not step in and fill that void.
Yeah. Wow. Even for a while, didn't Cats try to step out and go sort of national? They had like a Cats Midwest and something up in Michigan. So to see it just completely dissolve, crazy. I know there's plenty of trails around Texas.
Times are a changing, Jeff.
I say Deuce, Double Deuce, Duke Tran put him out of business with his unbelievable tournament director skills. That's what he did.
Hey, killers kill. Good shit.
Yeah,
good shit, Duke.
Killer Duke. All right, so let's get Jameson in here in a minute. Before we do that, let's, of course, thank our sponsors. Presenting sponsor, Dugout Bait and Tackle. Go to dugoutfishing.com.
Let's go.
The mini bottles of Western Stone. They also sell full-size and big, giant 2-gallon bottles. I think Ryan tried to put one of those away the first night we ever had.
Oh, man. I had those little Western Sun cans, and I was adding on top. That was silly. Don't do that.
You were being goaded into finishing the bottle that night.
Yeah. Well, live and learn. New year, new me.
Yeah. And, of course, Revo Sunglasses, best lenses on earth. Appreciate you guys. Revo, use the KBN 25 code to save a little money on the Revos.
Yep. And if you have a complaint about them, please post it, because I haven't heard one yet. So take that, suckers.
Not a one. Quite a few people have got them. I heard one, and I'm still rocking the ones I got back in the summer, and I haven't blinked yet. So
I got my dad a pair for Christmas. He's super, super happy.
Katie Bacca. Thanks, Katie. As always in the comments with the links. You are the best. Our IT/public relations person every Monday night. So thanks, Katie. All right. What do you say, man? You want to get Jameson in here? Let him give us the details.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. Hang on. Let me get this thing flipped
around.
Been
waiting my whole life to do this interview.
You have?
I actually have, yeah, since I started kayak fishing.
Tonight is your night. There he is. All right. Jameson Redding, welcome. Welcome to the program.
See, I've been waiting on my package of Western Sun to arrive so that I could have some for the show. I thought that was how this worked. It's the only reason I agreed to be on here was to get free vodka. Wow. So we need to talk about this.
That's a new mandate thing. You can't ship it across state lines or something like that.
That's not what my
Last time
said.
I saw you and vodka, Hertz Rental Cars called me for 2 months after that. So we're not doing that again.
I don't remember or
that wasn't me. That was another bearded man.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
So Jameson, I really have been waiting to do this interview forever, because one of the first big tournament I ever fished, you were running around with your camera and a light, sticking it in everybody's faces, doing interviews, trying to get commentary, capturing the madness that was the Kayak Bass series on the St. Johns River. Way back when.
Few events.
It was, and that was my first introduction to Jameson, and you were down there filming for KBS, but Jackson was also, were they title sponsor? They were a big sponsor because they were giving boats away.
Yeah, we were definitely a sponsor. And also while we were down there, I had some of the boats that we needed to record some of the walkthrough and promo stuff for, because as you know, that's kind of been my deal at Jackson for the past 8 or 9 years, is to try to help capture the promo videos and content. So I was kind of doing double duty and using that as a location to film some content, but also be there for the KBS as a sponsor and just to help them out as well. As misguided as it may have been back in the day, but
I remember you had Drew down there on the water, next to the river, shooting content, whatever. And I was like, man, that's the coolest stuff ever. Like, I want to be those guys. And then I met you both, and and that wore off. But what you were doing was so cool.
Yeah.
No, it's crazy where everybody started.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, to look back on it, I had a lot of good times and did a lot of cool stuff. Oh,
what happened?
So
he blacked out.
We lose him?
No, I'm here. I just tried to use my other camera and the battery died. So we're gonna stick to the
my boy.
My bad.
He is an actual cameraman. Is the
yeah, except for you got to charge batteries for them to work. So we're sticking.
That's what they say.
Built-in.
How did you go from that? And you worked on. I mean, tell people a little bit of your pedigree here. Like, they didn't just come out and like, hey, guy over in the corner, you want to have a show? I mean, talk about some of the things that you've done working with Drew. Obviously, you did some work, I think, with Z-Man as well on those projects, and Jim Salmon's. Like, you've been behind the scenes for a long time. How'd you claw your way to the front?
Yeah, so just real quick backstory. I think I started kayak fishing like the rest of you guys. Just wanted to find a way to get on some water that I couldn't access as easily with a big boat or, via wading, and wanted to access some rivers, some smallmouth fishing. I think you can appreciate that. I knew the best way would either be to get a canoe or a kayak. And at the time, I would say kayak fishing, while it had been around for a while, it wasn't what it is now. Like, no one was really putting motors on boats. No one was fishing big bass tournaments. There's a few offshore or even inshore tournaments going on, but not much. And so I got the first kayak. It was actually a Wilderness Systems Commander. It was not the right boat for what I was doing, which was running some of the New River. And I sunk it a couple times and had to have help getting it off the bottom of the river. For those of you that don't remember the Commander, it was an open cockpit, completely almost canoe kayak hybrid, like the Native Ultimate, or even similar to our Kilroy as well. I love the boat for the stability. But anyway, ended up with a Jackson Coosa, pre-ordered it when I saw they were coming out with a river boat, river fisherman. So figured that would make the most sense. And then just fell in love with the sport. Used to watch the kayak fishing show with Jim Salmons and record that. My buddies would come over and we would, DVR it and watch it. And then one thing led to another, started fishing some saltwater tournaments, because at the time that was the only trail for fishing tournaments. And there wasn't any kind of bass fishing trail. And I wanted to do something that was more than just a tournament here or there. I really wanted to like travel and go to new fisheries and meet people and just I think it forces you to be a better angler to try to come up with a pattern on a spot you might not have ever been. So started doing that, did decent. It was the IFA redfish. You could do inshore, I guess, because it was trout and redfish. Did that for a couple of years, got on the Jackson team, met Drew and Brooks actually at a boondoggle in Florida, and just basically expressed that I wanted to do more with the sport. And they had a need for camera operator / content creator, if you will. So I got on the old YouTube and started learning how to turn on a DSLR. And that's kind of how it happened. I didn't have any background in video or anything, but I wanted to do something. And so that's kind of how it led to me doing a lot of the videos for Jackson and just kind of learning my way through it. Getting to meet people like the producer, Will Richardson, was producing the kayak fishing show, and learning a lot from him, learning a lot from Drew, who was doing a lot of video stuff back then with the GoPros. And just, meeting different people that were already doing things that I wanted to learn to do, and really picking their brain, and then, YouTubing the crap out of everything to try to figure it out. So it kind of just led all the way to being the brand manager of fishing at Jackson Kayak. And then that kind of opened the door, I think, for the show. I had been around Heliconia through Chad's show and through Jim's show for a few years as a video guy, as a camera guy, and co-hosted some with Jim as well, and just always enjoyed it. And I don't know, they asked and I said yes. So here we are.
There you go.
Started from the bottom. That's the trick.
Now you're on KBN Live. How about that?
Yeah, now you've made it all the way to the top.
Yeah.
We've got Ryan waiting in the waiting room. We're going to bring him in here in a minute. But before that, tell us about this show. What this show is going to be all
So
about,
I think
the
the difference, if you will, from what maybe some of the other shows or even fishing shows for that matter, it's a big initiative for us at Jackson really to connect with our dealers and our communities that we're involved in through our team members and the dealers for that matter. So what I've been doing is, as Ryan mentioned, where he met me the first time, is traveling the country, visiting locations and filming and fishing with people and getting to meet people and learn new fisheries and really just kind of get involved in the kayak fishing community as a whole. And so that's what the show is about. It's something that I've always kind of, if I could pick what a show would be about, it would be about that. It would be about literally road tripping. It's called the Road Trip Angler, but road tripping to a new location or even an old location I've been to several times and just hanging out with the community, getting to know how the dealers are involved with the local community and
Jameson, are you there? Did he freeze, Ryan?
He froze on me. Yeah.
Yeah. So
He's coming back.
Okay. All right.
Whew,
that must be
Captain.
my service guys.
That's all right. That's all right.
But yeah, just getting involved with the local community and just showcasing that. It's really not about me being a great fisherman or anything, because I'm not, but there's a lot of really cool, legit people in these different areas. So showcasing them and how to fish their.
Do you catch fish on this show, or is this more like toad trips?
Well, so we filmed one episode and I did catch fish. So it's to
All right.
be,
You're off
be
to a good
seen how
start,
the rest
player.
of the season goes.
That's the hard part about this, people, is getting any kind of fish catch on camera. Like it's fine when you're running GoPros, and that's why external power in GoPros is your best friend. But when you have another human with a camera and you're trying to catch fish in front of them, some of the people that have fished the TOC and whatnot with Hobie, where they send out the film crew with you, there's no greater pressure on earth, and nothing will shut down a bite like just that flip, the flip of the switch on the camera. Like
I
the
believe it
fish, they
changes
know,
the
they
weather.
can sense it. Like they know it's not going to happen. So
There's some guys that will not film themselves fishing because they believe that curses them to not catch fish.
I think it brings weather, like bad weather. I don't know about if it keeps the fish from biting, but weather definitely does. And every time we take a camera somewhere, the wind turns up about 20 miles per hour.
we can bring Ryan on now, but Jameson, I ping you and Brooks and Rob Will Valderay a ton, over the past 3 or 4 years as I was trying to accumulate equipment and make sure I was buying the right stuff and taking advice. And I would send them, rough drafts of the projects I was doing. Thank you. Thank you for the advice. Thank you for being a friend, and congratulations. Couldn't happen to a better guy.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, and please stick around. Don't jump off the
I'm
call.
here.
We're ready to pick your brain too. Hang on just a second. Let's get you in here. All right, now let's welcome to the show Ryan Lilly, Old Town Brand Evangelist. What's up, Ryan? Now I want to.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good.
Good.
Everybody get on your best behavior. This is my guy from Old Town. Now we don't need anybody.
You just have to be on yours. He can't fire any of the rest of us.
Okay. All right.
It's true.
No.
True story.
No, it's up in Ryan's up in the Northeast. It's cold. It's dark up there. So I'm glad he's taking the time late in the evening to jump on here with us. So thank you, sir.
That's cool. I was just watching Office reruns upstairs, so no worries.
Hate to interrupt.
Yeah, man.
No
Yeah.
worries.
Well, first, tell us your bio a little bit and a little bit about what a brand evangelist is. Some people had some questions about that.
What is the title Brand Evangelist? I have a question about that.
Yeah.
What is that? How did you earn that recognition? Number one.
It's pretty cool. Johnson Outdoors is a portfolio of brands. I work for the Watercraft division, and it's a new position within the whole company. And every single division will have, or it has, a brand evangelist. I was the first brand evangelist for the entire company for Watercraft, and then they hired one for diving. They have one for camping. They have one for marine electronics, which is Humminbird Minn Kota. So now we all brands, all pillars within Johnson Outdoors has a brand evangelist. And really, what we're charged to do, what I'm charged to do for Watercraft is content. I oversee community marketing. So anything consumer facing, pro staff, ambassadors, again, content, product launches, things like that. And then, we're a pretty tight marketing team here. I work really closely with our marketing manager, who handles really the trade side of things, and then our brand product manager, which handles the product side of things. And so that's kind of how we divvy things up. So yeah, it's awesome. The title really doesn't make sense to anybody else out there. So I find myself, having to explain it, but I'm not planning on going anywhere. I love the company, and they can call me whatever they want. I'm happy to be doing it.
Perfect. I didn't know if you did like tent revivals on the road or what kind of thing was happening here, but it makes more sense now.
He has led an Old Town revival across this country, to be honest, Ryan.
Yeah, I know. So I've been with Old Town for about 6 years, which is crazy to think. Prior to that, worked for Garmin, and I've been in the outdoor space for my entire career, so 18, 19 years now. Old Town is based here in Maine. That's where I'm from. That's where I live. I can't believe it's been 6 years. Actually, I'm thinking about that right now for the first time. But thanks for having me. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, man.
Enough about me.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of questions. We're going to get questions from the people watching, I'm sure. So if you are watching, share this around, because some other people might want to see this, get this information, or have some questions for either one of these fellows as well. But yeah, I wanted to come at it from the perspective of, okay, Ryan, from your side as an evangelist, how do we look at this?
Praise be.
Yeah.
I love it. No, I freaking
every
love
time I say evangelist, I'm like this.
This is interesting because my background is actually divinity. I have a
Jameson is the captain and Ryan is the evangelist. So
we could get something going, I think, Ryan.
All right, Jameson, it's nice to meet you, by the way, man.
Yeah, you too.
There you go. We're building bridges.
We're bringing people together. That's what we're about here. Okay, we're about bringing people together.
We create personalities and bring people together. That's what we do on this page in the show. But yeah, we look at this through the lens of competitive kayak bass fishing. That's all we talk about. It's what we do. But I know Old Town, Jackson, whoever it is, you guys look at it as kayak fishing as a whole. I know Old Town, their team, for instance, you guys diversify. You get people in saltwater, people that duck hunt, deer hunt, do all kinds of different things. It's not just kayak bass fishing. But from your perspective, looking at the kayak bass fishing part of this, how do you see it growing? How are you planning to use it going forward to grow the brand, within the tournament space, I guess?
Yeah. Well, unless you're living under a rock, it's hard to deny the fact that bass fishing, tournament bass fishing, is a very passionate group of people that really drives the innovation in our space. The kayak anglers, tournament kayak anglers, are early adopters of technology. They invest more in their watercraft and really are the corest of the core customer when it comes to kayak fishing. So really, it makes a lot of sense to focus effort strategically in that space as a business, because those are the people that are pushing us to improve and to innovate. And so that just reflects across the entire board. You look at what we've launched for products, what other companies within the space have launched for products. It's cutting edge, it's innovative, and it's making the angling experience easier for the angler to focus on catching and being competitive. And so really that's driven a lot of our decisions strategically in how we want to approach our promotional staff and how we structure who we support as a brand and who we want to support us. And so it's huge. It's a huge growth opportunity. We see, more investment happening at like the Bassmaster level with kayak fishing. KBF is growing. The Hobie BOS, the Hobie puts on an awesome event with the BOS. And a lot of these regional events are really starting to grow as well, like Top Water up in the upper Midwest, KFNW up in the Pacific Northwest, and a lot of others that are cropping up and getting a lot of people involved. And then you throw the fuel of like COVID on the fire, where people want to get out and do more and experience the outdoors more and find, invigorate their passions. And we're seeing more people kind of come into the sport and love kayak fishing. So just a lot of new entrants into the sport. A lot of people are familiar with bass fishing. It's one of the, it's the number one game species of fish out there. And so we've seen a lot of interest around there. So there's just a lot of reasons, and I'm saying a lot of words to say that kayak bass fishing is really one of the most popular things. When we invest a lot of money in consumer research. That's something that we hang our hats on, as we don't make any decisions without doing a ton of upfront research on our consumer. And bass fishing is the number one targeted species within our space, and so it makes a ton of sense. With that being said, we also understand that there's a lot more fishing outside of bass fishing, even though that's the biggest chunk of the pie. We don't want to forget about the other regions, the other species of interest. And there's a lot of opportunity to expand outside of bass fishing too. But really, the most of the growth is happening on the bass side. A lot of people love the tournament thing. We're seeing more tournaments crop up, and that's where we're investing.
I like to add to that, it's easier and more approachable too for a person to get into a kayak fishing tournament than it would be, to go, you don't have to go out and buy a boat or find someone with a boat and become that guy that stands on the back of the boat and try to fish. And so I think that, being that entry, like, it's easier to enter, but now it's easier to also see yourself as even a professional. That has expanded so much over the past decade from what it was. I mean, I'm sure you've seen in 6 years of being at Old Town that, you walked around ICAST, 6-7 years ago, and you didn't see a lot of kayak fishing. And now you see it in every booth. There's something, to do with kayak fishing on almost every single booth and all the marketing that's there. So I mean, it's obvious that we're growing and taking a bigger chunk out of the fishing pie, if you will. So
I think it's definitely being recognized by the bigger brands, and you can see it not only in like ICAST, like new product debuts and whatnot, but the involvement of these professional anglers, not them necessarily by choice, but you see them connecting more with kayak manufacturers for sponsorships. Like, they recognize the massive reach of kayak fishing, and these bigger companies are starting to capitalize on this. And you see it from guys that weren't traditional kayak anglers, not somebody that's even ever fished out of a kayak before, but that's becoming more and more prevalent. What are your thoughts on that? Jameson, I'll let you start and then kick it over to Ryan after you share.
Yeah, I think, we're not Johnson Outdoors, so we don't have as big of a budget probably as you guys have over at Old Town, but we do get approached. Well, it's got to be divided, right, between all the brands. But we get approached by a lot and bigger names, and they see it and they perceive it as, we sell a lot of plastic boats. And so I think, there's something to be said about that. However, I will also say that as a brand, that when we look at that, that's not that I want to say no to the big names in bass fishing, but I really want people representing our brand that are fans already of the sport and fans already of Jackson Kayak, for that matter. I'd love to see those guys, getting into the sport and really doing it, not just driving around with the kayak on top of their truck and having that look or wanting to get the extra dollar from a brand like Old Town or Jackson, but actually diving into it and really, embracing it and, even competing at some of these events and kind of showing that they are, kind of an all across the board fisherman. They're not just going to be able to do well on a big bass boat, but they can do well from a kayak as well. And so it's really cool to just see that recognition, in my opinion, as this became more mainstream. It's not, oh, you guys are fishing out of a kayak, kind of thing that you still get occasionally at the boat ramp or whatever. Now it's more people stop and want to look at, all the things you've done to your kayak. And of course, then you get the argument that is it no longer a kayak, but really who cares, right? Like, we didn't get into this to go kayak, and we got into this to go fishing. And so however the best way to do that. And I think that people are recognizing that it might be a better way to do it sometimes than the big bass boat or whatever.
Yeah. We've restructured the way we do things in the last few years, and how we've approached pro staff and trying to bring more attention to the sport. And in so doing, it's building a kick-ass pro staff that's regionally diverse, species diverse, people that are, plugged into local retail shops, but also maybe competitive at their local trail, et cetera, et cetera. But then also layering in people that are savvy with a camera, have a platform to speak, and then some larger names. And like we've brought on just this year, new for this year, we brought on a couple of larger names, as well as building out our pro staff. We got Brandon Polnick and Oliver Nye. And really our reasoning there was, we think it's the rising tide that lifts all boats, right? The more people that we have at the larger level, fishing out of our kayaks, and same thing for Jackson and Hobie with Ike and everything, is only going to be good for our sport and our industry. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to take all the marketing budget to invest in just large names that will fish out of it for a fraction of the year. But it does make sense to invest in the right people that are authentic, that will actually use the product and have the platform to elevate our sport. That's only a good thing, right? But then also making sure that you're investing on the other programs that are the actual everyday, this is my daily driver watercraft. I'm going out there to kayak fish and tournament fish. And so I think having, a pie that makes sense to have like those bigger names that have the platform, but then also have the army of influential pro staffers that are competing in all the tournaments and in the retail stores. I think it makes sense to have that diverse representation, and it's only a good thing.
For sure.
Yeah, and that's something that has been a subject of contention on our page. I would say when you say I keep wanting to say Ryan, but I guess I'm gonna have to say Lambert because both of you are gonna look at me if I say Ryan.
That's why I put that other name on there, just so
lunch money.
So there's no confusion.
I always just say Ryan. But on our page, that discussion's going on is why don't these companies use the kayak anglers? Why are they, throwing this at the pros, this and pro that? But I think, and I won't speak for Jackson, but I think Old Town does a fine job of kind of tying in your regional and national kayak anglers and trying to build their names up too. So you want to speak a little bit, Ryan, on how you guys do that and the focus of that?
Sure. And that's been a lot. That's very strategic, and it's been subject of many meetings internally, and something that we've invested a lot of time and energy in trying to figure out what makes sense. Because I don't think we would be doing the industry or our brand any favors by prematurely throwing a ton of money at people too soon within kayak fishing before we kind of bring the groundswell and grow the sport and bring it up. So I just don't think that it makes a ton of sense because I come from originally when I first came out of college, I worked in the ski side of things, and I managed the pro team for K2 snowboarding, and I saw this. I came into that program and saw a ton of money being thrown at people that really didn't have a name yet, and they didn't have the chops yet, didn't have the professionality yet, and it really didn't go anywhere. We're throwing good money at something that really didn't work, and really we weren't doing the groundwork of kind of building the sport from the ground up and really growing the names with the sport. And so I don't think it makes a ton of sense to take marketing money and just start throwing it and trying to make people rich. I don't think that works. I think that creates a lot of bad blood and makes your brand implode down the road. What we do think works is building a program that invests in the success of the anglers at the tournaments. So helping them get to these tournaments by reimbursing fees, reimbursing travel expenses, and then layering on win bonuses based on how they perform in these said tournaments. So that incentivizes them to get to these tournaments, and then we're going to reward the heck out of them if they place well. And also providing the equipment that they need to do the job that they want to do. And so investing kind of in the growth of the sport while investing in their entry point into doing greater events, and helping them grow the name and the platform for themselves. So that's kind of how we've approached it. And, I see a lot of people throwing mud at like companies like us or Jackson or Hobie who invest in larger name peoples like Brandon Polnick or Ike. And, I think people will be surprised at how it's not as much money as you would think to secure these people. And really, they do love the sport. And yeah, I mean, it's a business decision for them, but also it's not like ridiculous money. And so I don't think that it's very fair, I think, for the brands to sometimes get the bad publicity from these sort of relationships. And honestly, I think it's like I said earlier. I think it's a rising tide. Like the people know Ike, they love Ike. They'll buy a Hobie because Ike uses a Hobie. Same thing with Brandon Polnick. People love them, but they might not have understood kayak or had any introduction to kayak fishing without understanding who Ike was or understanding who Brandon Polnick was. So I think it's investing in your grassroots program like we're doing at Old Town, while also trying to help the rising tide by introducing more people and more eyeballs to the sport.
It definitely pulls a lot more eyes, obviously, when you are a big time pro fisherman or a pro YouTuber or whatever. But you have guys on the trails that are dropping 7, 8, 10, 15 grand a year that are putting out these quality products and fishing these tournaments and running the trails. That's something that I've been trying to push from this side of things, is you have to show a product on the other end. Like for someone that's running a team or a marketing account, even, like you have to show ROI, like you have to show your reach. Nobody cares. No one. If you go fish 20 tournaments or if you place in 5, like that's not the part that matters. It's how you're telling your story along the way. Like, are you keeping people involved? Is there a following that cares how you do in the event? Are there people that are going to pay attention to you? And Jameson, I'll switch this question over to you to answer this, but Jackson's had a good team, for a long time. When I first got into kayak fishing 7 or 8 years ago, everything on the water here in Tennessee was Jackson. Every kayak angler was fishing out of a Jackson. You guys really rewarded. You kind of started the first reward program, if you will, for the pro team as far as like incentivizing finishes in these bigger tournaments. Tell us a little about that, and then tell us, how you see that going in the future.
So it's been, there's been ups and downs at Jackson. It's no secret that, we struggled as a brand for a couple of years. But going back to what you said originally is what I think was unique about the Jackson team, and I was put on the team back then. I didn't create this in any way and can't take any credit for it, is it became this kind of family of people, the group, and we're still that way today. And I think that's what's kept a lot of the really good anglers through some of the harder times that we went through as a brand. And we've been able to come out of that. And we were coming out of that actually pretty well, even before COVID. Now COVID helped accelerate that a lot. And we're a lot healthier as a company as a whole. And so we've kind of taken a look at how we've done things and what we can and can't do to survive as a brand. We're not while we seem big from the outside, we're still an independently owned and operated small kayak manufacturer in Sparta, Tennessee. So, we have to be healthy there in order to be able to take care of the people that are on our team. And that's been, kind of the focus is getting there so that we can better take care of the team. And I can say this year and really some of last year, we were able to do a lot more of that. And to kind of speak to what you're saying about that ROI thing, our big focus is yes, we do have some sticks. I mean, we've got some hammers out there fishing tournaments for us. But how do we take advantage of their knowledge and really open them up to, the consumers and make sure that while we may love them and they're doing a great job, like you said, we have to have that ROI. And so I think the way that you do that is you help, you really partner with that person. It's not so much them growing our brand or us growing their brand. We're trying to help, as you said, Ryan, raise the tide for all of it, right? And so we want them to grow as a brand. So anything we can do to help them have a bigger voice, or maybe to take someone that is a good speaker and have them work with a good, tournament angler to be able to share some of their tips and tricks out there to get more people interested in the sport of kayak fishing and be speakers. If you look at any of the big, pro guys, I mean, they're going to the shows and they're teaching, they're standing up there at the tanks and showing people what's done. They have the social followings, and they're giving people information and they're approachable. And, if we can find, the balance there where you've got good tournament angler or a good fisherman that also has that reach and identify how that is, whether they're a good writer, a good photographer, they're a good public speaker, whatever it is, and then help them have that platform. If it's, setting it up and paying them to be in an event, or, giving them some money to go capture some content, or whatever it may be, but you really have to identify kind of three areas in this community, content and sales. And if they can strive in one of those areas, and then we can give them that platform, I think that we have a better team for it and we can all work together.
Yeah, you nailed it. That's really our pillars too, is like, someone might be super influential in Connecticut at Black Hall Outfitters, which is one of our big retailers, and really important, impactful for that retailer. And they're just as important to our pro staff program as Casey Reed, or Jeff, who's placing at these larger events. And so really, like,
Casey Reed.
Not looking. Yeah,
love you, Jeff.
We're not. I think we've come a long way, because a few years ago we really tried to hold the whole team to the same set of standards, and really, it's about understanding the different elements of our team and what people bring to the table, and investing the time, because thankfully we're staffed up now. A few years ago, it was literally like two of us doing marketing for Old Town. We just didn't have the time to invest in 80-person team and to do it well. Now it's one of my full-time deals. And Jameson, I think, speaks volumes. The investment that you've had with the team over there, it's like it takes a lot of time and effort and energy to get to know each individual person, and to invest up front to make sure that you're getting the right person on the team in the right place, that have the right skill sets to help the brand. And also, like you said, like, find opportunities to help these people build their brands. And that's so important. And as a brand, content is everything, and making sure that you're connecting with your audience. And if you've got the right team of people, they're going to help you connect with the audience, and it's going to help them. It's going to help you. And so really it is that partnership, and finding the right people, for that relationship is just so important.
Yeah. Let me ask you all this. You guys have Jackson Old Town have good teams. Jackson's, I've known a lot of Jackson pro staffers over the years, very impressive folks. And then of course I'm partial to the Old Town squad. I love the Old Town team. I think it's been built the right way. It's not overly big. It's got quality personnel on it. But even with that being said, there's turnover there. So this year there was some turnover. People are held to a standard and have to live up to those standards. So when it's time to fill open spots, I'm sure there's some questions out there, so let's hear them. What are you looking for in new team members as the years go by?
Well, for me, it's really, like I said earlier, that passion for the sport. I think, some of that turnover is obviously people's personalities, conflict, but I think a lot of it is just people, their lives change, right? They're no longer doing what they were doing. Maybe they tournament fished for a while and they got out of it. I mean, there's been times over the last decade when I was like, okay, this is just not working. I need to move on to something else. Of course, I was trying to make a living doing it versus, it wasn't just a hobby or whatever, but even people's hobbies change. So I think a lot of that turnover is that. So if I could find somebody, and we have great team leads, some of them are actually in the comments here, but they help me do this. But being able to find that person that really has a great passion for it and is obviously already doing something to share that passion, then you kind of know that you'll be able to work with that person and that they'll bring something to the team, and then just trying to identify what that something is and help them have that platform.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in quality over quantity. I struggle with what the right number is to have for the team, and the way we approached it this year is a little bit different. We kind of broke our team up into 3 sections. so we can invest rather than peanut butter spread the budget and the time and everything. We divided the team into three teams. Basically, we have our ambassador team, which is our content creators, people with platforms, popular YouTube channels that we can kind of work with and partner with to help us create content. And then we have our pro staff, which are regional influencers that are competing, involved in local retailers, helping reps, are very, very involved in their regional communities. And then we have our pro team, and that is who we're investing to compete in these higher level tournaments. And so really for us, the way we approached it was, all right, if we had 95 people last year, looking at the spreadsheet, where are these people located? What kind of pillar do they fall under? And then also just, we do build in a KPI framework and we monitor it closely. At least we have the last few years to make sure, and everybody's contracted. Everybody on our pro staff's contracted. And we have a certain very minimal amount of asks from our pro staff in exchange for what we provide for our pro staff. And really it's like, be active on social media, be engaged in social media, help our customers wherever you can, be available to our rep for a handful of weeks a year or weekends a year. It's very minimal. And so if you can hit that, most people can. So if like people aren't hitting that, it's very obvious. And we have those conversations. And a lot of times, like you said, Jameson, it's like life stuff comes up, like I had a kid or I moved or, I changed jobs, and it's like, okay, can you keep doing this or can you not? And it's also a partnership for us with our sales reps. It's like we want our sales reps to be familiar with the pro staff. And if the sales rep doesn't know who the pro staffer is and the pro staffer's been on the team for 3 years, there's a problem there. And we should probably address it and just understand like what's the misunderstanding here. So like it's a partnership with us with our sales team and understanding where people are at. And so really it took us a few years to kind of get the team where it is, Jeff, today. And so there was some turnover just from natural life changes and things like that. But also like some people just weren't holding it up, and we're like, hey, listen, like we've got 200 people that just applied that want to do this, that are hungry to do this. And we would like to try to fill those positions with people that really want to be here and really want to provide and that want to invest in the brand and vice versa. And so like, yeah, we did experience turnover this year and last, but I think it's for the better. And, no hard feelings, obviously. And we're really thankful for the team that we've had over the years. But I think that we're set up to be really strong this year for a team, just based on the work on the front end of understanding where everybody's at and then making sure that we vet the people that applied.
I think you have to have turnover or you're not doing it right. That being said, you may have, let's say, 100-person team, but you have 30% of that just aren't putting out. They're not delivering. And I know people deliver in different ways, but I feel like, watching this whole deal develop, some people get put on these teams and then they quit. Like their whole goal was just to get in the door. They don't realize what you have to do to stay in the door. And right. And we see that in bait companies or shops or, kayak brand manufacturers, whatever it may be. But people don't understand that you have to, once you get the opportunity, that's your time to elevate what you're bringing to the table. If any of us want to see this grow to where, there's a field of 50 or whatever that can afford to make this a full-time gig, that's the investment that it takes. Is everybody's got to get behind it. You have to appreciate the opportunity you're given, but you also have to continue to put out. That's what pushes the whole thing forward. I mean, if these companies don't recognize that you can bring as much value to the table reach-wise as a pro or a YouTuber or whatever, then it's kind of null and void across the board. I think driving that point home as leaders of teams, like you have to do something to stay here. Getting cut's not a bad thing, or people's opinions changing and going to a different product isn't a bad thing. That's all part of growth in general. But you have to have that floor of, if you don't do this, then you're not going to be here anymore. So I don't think cutting is necessarily about hard feelings. I think you have to hold that standard.
Like Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. I was just going to say real quick. I think a lot of people agree with that 100%. They come into it thinking that, I've already done whatever it takes, and really, you've just been given that opportunity to really prove yourself when you become a pro staffer. And you see people that are like want to do the work once they get paid, right? Like, I'll make those videos if you give me this money. No, you should make those videos so that then people will recognize you and give you that money, or whatever it may be, whether it's, being a better angler, being a better, speaker, whatever. Like, invest in yourself so that others and brands will then recognize that. But it's a balance. You obviously there's brands out there that will take advantage of, hey, giving somebody a discount, and that person goes and works their butt off, and they're really not making anything, and they're only getting a discount for that product. And so it kind of can give, there is a balance of knowing what you're worth. And a brand needs to respect what you're worth, but also, you better be worth what you're worth. You know what I mean? So, like, you can't say you're worth something if you're really not, and you need to be able to constantly be looking internally at yourself, I think, of how you can be better and how you can grow in really everything. But if that's something you really want to do, if it's something that, is passion, and you want to chase it and turn it into more than just, going fishing on the weekend, then you really got to look at how you can add value to the brands that you work with.
Some friends of ours just learned this lesson, I think, in Lambert. I was going to say Ryan again. Lambert took Jordan Marshall, for instance, out and kind of took him under his wing to show him the other side of this, because Jordan won the BOS Angler of the Year. And this even happened to our buddy Mark Pendergraft, my Old Town teammate. And from winning these tournaments, thought that, the streets were going to flow with milk and honey just from winning the tournaments. And while that is a great thing, and I'm so happy those guys won the tournament or won AOI, there's a lot more than just winning the tournament and then just standing there and saying, hey, everybody, write a check. Come on down the road with it.
Right? I will say you'd be shocked. You'd be shocked at how brand relationships really aren't where pro bass anglers are making money. It isn't. I've seen it. I've seen the back end at other brands, and that's not where they're making their money. They're making their money from the Visa partnerships and from winning tournaments. And so like that's where I think our space has to understand that there really isn't like these big budgets that we can invest in the sport until we get the sport elevated. And that's why we're making investments and trying to grow the way we're trying to grow on the grassroots level, because as we get more people into the sport, these tournaments get bigger, the winnings get bigger, and we're able to reinvest more back into the sport. And so that's what's really exciting. And I think that's coming if we keep going down the trajectory we're going. I mean, look at what kayaks are going for these days and what anglers are spending on them. I mean, it's growing. And just seeing like the tournament purses at some of these events now, like it's getting there, and I think it's only a matter of time till we're there. And there's a lot more people that can afford to get into kayak fishing than people that can get into bass boat. So I think it's there, it's coming. So I absolutely agree with that. And then to kind of go back on the whole cutting team and everything, one thing that we've tried to approach when culling or trying to fine tune our team is like, we have to have a lot of grace, because this is no one's full-time job, right? Everybody's got to have a day job, and they got to do this too, and they got families and commitments and things like that. So we try to like factor in a lot of grace when looking at, ROI and things like that. And as a brand, like, very few people are actually getting paid. So we understand that like a lot of this is volunteer work that you're getting really good deal on boats or a free boat or free swag or whatever. So we understand like, so there's a lot of grace that's involved, I think, with pro staff and decision-making and things like that. And, it was really hard this year too, because like we want to keep our team tight. And Jameson, I'm sure you can relate to this. Like you want to keep your team tight. You want to be able to track that ROI for management when they're asking like, all right, what's this team doing for us? Like how's it helping the brand, that sort of thing. While you've got like, this year during our application process, we had 250 plus applicants, and we only had so many like handfuls of spots. And so like, it's a hard thing, right? Because there's so many qualified people out there, and just trying to make sure that you add the right people in the right place and timing's everything too. So like anybody, I think one of the things you want to talk about is like, what do people want to, like, what should people consider when applying for pro staff? Like, the first no isn't no forever, right? Things change in different regions. You can keep improving on your angling or your platform or your relationships with the retailers in your area. And there's going to be turnover based on these life things that we discussed. So I think as long as you keep engaging the brand, engage with their content, get to know them as people at events, things like that, I don't think that original no that you received was because anything personal or anything that you did wrong. It's just like there's only a limited amount of slots on a team, and it could take a few years to get on a team.
I think getting yourself on a radar of a team that you want to work with and trying to stay on that radar, for example, Z-Man or somebody like, I threw Z-Man baits. I fished out of Jackson boats before I was with Jackson Kayak, and, going to the events and being a part of the events, whether it was a tournament or like I mentioned, the Boondoggles or whatever, where you would get the opportunity to actually, meet someone. I had a guy tell me the other day that he didn't understand how most people knew me because my social media following is not that huge or not even big at all, really. Like this guy's got 60,000 on Instagram, but everywhere we went, people knew who I was. And it's, my thing is I like talking to people. I like meeting new people. And so getting to know someone and that helped me a lot was being willing to go do things and go places and step outside of that box and talk to people and really connect a face to a name, and then deliver constantly whatever it was. Here's some new photos, here's some, whatever. If the opportunity ever does arise, I'd love to talk about it, and not give it up, because it's not a personal thing. It's not, hey, I don't like you or what you're doing. It's just literally, I have this much to work with, and you might be just as good as a lot of others, but if I have this much to work with and I already have this many guys on the team, I may not have the openings, and I may not have them in that region, or I may not have them for that type of fishing or whatever it may be. But it doesn't mean that we won't always. And so it's never you want to turn somebody away from your brand, because, it truly, they may be, great. And I think, encouraging them to keep trying and stay on the radar is a good thing. And it'll help them appreciate more when they do actually attain that goal too.
Let me ask you this for aspiring folks. I had a few friends that tried to get on Old Town, for instance. They didn't quite make it, but like you said, there weren't very many spots open. Does tagging companies, even though you're not on the team, do you guys notice that down the road? Like, oh, this guy's been tagging Old Town for 2 years, or Jackson, or whatever it is. Does that play a part in anything if they're out there trying to make the team?
It's hard for sure to see all of them, but we do have social media people that look for those things and try to comment, like, and that kind of thing, and occasionally there's a person that will pop up and it's like, hey, this person is killing it, and they're constantly pushing Jackson, and that does happen. So for sure, I mean, I don't know the scale, and I don't know what other companies see and what they don't see. I know that for us, we try to look at the tags, and we try to look at the hashtags and, be a part of it. And it's a full-time job to literally go through that stuff and try to connect with the consumer and the people that are using our product, because we want to be that. We want to be that way, and it's important to us to be that way. And I see other companies doing it as well.
Yeah. For us, I can speak to this because social media falls under evangelism. So we, tagging, it's good, right? We see some of it, but it's easy, it's easy for that to fade. Where we notice people is people that actually engage with our content. So people that leave comments or respond within our posts, we see that more than we do see a hashtag Old Town Kayaks. So yeah, hashtags do factor in, but that's more, we're looking at macro trends when we're looking at social media macro trends when we see the hashtagging, and we're focusing more on engagement and what people are doing in the comments, and we'll see, oh wow, this person, at Katie Bacca, because she's just commenting, she's our pro staffer. Hey, Katie. We'll see people commenting, and we'll see that the trend of that person being really engaged, not only in our public social media accounts, but also in our owners groups. And that's kind of, we take note of that, I think, more than hashtags.
I'll tell you from an angler side, the relationship I built with Z-Man started out as just tagging them in photos when I would catch something on a big TRD or jackhammer or what. It was actually the little TRD back then, but built that relationship where, I was getting replies and having conversations with whoever their social media manager is, continuing that conversation, building on that. That's what gets you noticed, because they're going to pass your name up the line. The more and more you post, like, hey, this person's really, they're really killing it over here. Another excerpt from Jameson's last reply: when you meet people in person, engage them, leave an impression. That's what people remember. They remember seeing your name over and over again on these posts. They remember the engagement that you had with them. And that can literally translate over into your opportunity to build a relationship with this company. So, everything that comes your way, take it seriously. Don't just walk by the person or whatever, introduce yourself and walk off. Take the time to have a conversation, learn. And this is a good example of our interview process. Learn how they got to where they are. Ask questions. Engage them. That way they think that you care about what they're doing, even if you don't. So,
and ask what they're looking for in a person. If the answer is no, just quickly say, hey, I know you probably don't have a lot of time, but why is the answer no? What can I do to improve to try to help that answer be, turn into a yes? Don't be afraid to ask those questions or get mad or angry just because you got turned down. I mean, you see that all the time. Like, don't they know what I'm doing? And it's like, we might not. And it doesn't mean you're not doing it. It just means we might not know or understand. And so, ask.
Yeah. And don't, if you do leave a team, don't burn down the team you left. Come on, people. Just quietly.
Does anybody have, I saw a question earlier, does anybody have a new boat to drop live tonight? Either of you? No? Okay. The answer is no. They don't.
They both chuckled like they have something in the back of
Yes. Yes, we do.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's okay.
Yeah. Stay tuned, maybe, for springtime is coming in summer. Yeah. I'm trying to get back to some of the comments. There were some good ones. I've
been trying to read, man. I'm trying to read and I'm trying to listen, because both of these guys actually know what they're talking about.
Yeah, there was a scary one that I saw.
Guests.
Somebody had an idea for a show that scared me a little bit.
Oh, I didn't read that one.
Did you see it? Oh, here it is. It said, bring the wives of these people on to get their perspective.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably not a good idea.
I don't know.
No,
man.
she's definitely been great. I wouldn't be where I'm at by no means if it hadn't been for the support. Because back in the day, there was no money, and there still isn't a lot of money. But back then, I was doing this for free pretty much, and just to try to get my name out there. So if it wasn't for my wife working full time as a nurse to get me through that and us through that, we wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be having this conversation with you lovely people.
That lady's a saint. She needs a trophy or some sort of sash or something.
Well, I'm a trophy.
No, but a real trophy that she appreciates.
Yeah. Not like one of those participation awards.
Not a small ribbon. I'm talking about a trophy.
Straight up, man. Always shout out Ashley K, AKM Salon, #1 sponsor. No offense, Ryan Lilly. No offense. Let's see. Here's one from Clifton. He said, how do y'all feel about some of the anglers who rep you but don't necessarily use your product all the time? I don't understand what that means. I don't know anyone that reps Jackson or Old Town that does not fish out of a Jackson or Old Town. If that's what he means by that.
I'm sure we're going to find out in moments. If I had,
I do. Well, that's I do. There's a few people like in our sportsman owners group on Facebook that own other brands, and they'll post fishing pics from their other brands, and they'll talk positively about their experiences in all their platforms. And it's actually kind of a good thing, right? Because it's good for people to be well read in a variety of watercrafts and have those experiences. It's been really helpful for our community to be like, hey, I'm thinking I'm between this boat and this boat, and someone would be like, I own both of them. Here's a picture of me fishing for crappies out of my Hobie, and here's one out of my Jackson Bite, and here's one out of my top water. This is what I like about them all. So it's been, it's good. I think it's awesome to have people be brand loyal, but also understanding that people are going to own several watercraft, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, and one thing I could say as a staffer that's been to a lot of demo days and different things is I spend the least amount of time at the demo days in the old towns if possible, because I can't speak intelligently about the differences in a big water 132 and an Outback if I've never been in an Outback.
Yep.
So you need to try them all now.
I think too, no one brand, or at least I'm going to say this about our brand, and hopefully my management is watching right now, but no one brand has a kayak
They're
that
not.
fits every person's needs perfectly, right? So I used to work, again, when I got into this, I worked retail for a shop in Winston-Salem, a great outdoor provision company, and we sold Hobie, and we sold Old Town, and we sold Jackson and Wilderness Systems, and now I think they carry a few other brands. I think we had New Canoe too at the time. And Jackson didn't make a pedal drive at the time. I was a Jackson team member, but I worked there. And when I worked there, I tried to take that hat off as much as possible. And I still do that, because you're not authentic to a person if obviously you're pushing them into something and you don't know anything about the other products. And it may not be the right thing for them. It may not be the right boat for what they're trying to do, or maybe way more than they're capable of moving around, and they're not going to enjoy it. And they're not going to be a fan of kayak fishing, and they're not going to then spill over into someone else and encourage them to become a fan of kayak fishing. So I think that there's something to be said about, and I'm not telling any of our team members to go out and push other brands necessarily, but I do think that they need to know how to speak to it, and they need to know what's going on with the other brands, and they need to know the benefits of some of the other brands, because there's a lot of good brands out there. And if we're all just, I think can be seen tonight that I've never met you, Ryan, in person, but to be able to sit here and have this conversation as to competing brands in the industry, we need to have each other there to push each other to be innovative, not only with our product, but with our team and with our marketing efforts, and just across the board. And if we don't have that healthy competition where we can, you guys do it every day when you go to a tournament, right? You've got guys that you're competing against, and you want to beat them more than anything, but yet you're going to sit there and have a beer with them before and after the event, and you're going to leave as friends. So it's really important. I think that healthy competition kind of forces you to continue to grow. And I think team members, need to recognize that it's not us versus them all the time, that it might be us versus, something that's not good for the sport. We're trying to grow the sport as a whole.
Spoiler alert, we actually brought you two on tonight on purpose. Because Jackson and Old Town are doing the most for their anglers right now. And that's something that I really wanted to highlight, and hopefully not only the anglers take notice of this, you guys are giving back the most to the sport right now, but also other brands. Like, I want other brands to wake up and realize, like, it's more than about somebody wearing a jersey or whatever. There's dollars on the other end of it for the companies, but also for the anglers. You're more motivated to work harder if you think there is a next level that you can get to. And on these teams is a great example of getting your feet wet and then being able to work up to that next tier and really earn something that's going to benefit you to kind of chase this little dream. I'm going to segue into the question, and we'll go to Ryan first. What do you think it's going to take to elevate the kayak bass fishing tournament platform to that next level with some sort of live coverage, media engagement? How do we grow this to get on the bigger radar of things?
Yeah, I think it's headed in the right direction. I think just Bassmaster alone adopting this, and there has been hiccups, no doubt. I think we all that are watching know the shortcomings of Bassmaster's entry into the kayak tournament side, but they do care. They're listening. We're we're their main kayak sponsor, and so we've been the mouthpiece for our team who've been invested in those events, and they're listening and they're making changes, and so I just think every angler advocating for events to do better and to invest in the right areas is going to go a long way. Bassmasters introducing an AOI this year, thanks to the loud voices within the Old Town team saying that it needed to happen, and that's happening. And I think that's a right step in the right direction. I think also, more regional events that are tied into these larger tours. I think it makes a ton of sense to have the stops where they're happening, but I think if you want the sport to grow, it's got to kind of leave kayaking's Bible Belt, if that makes sense. I think it's got to adopt new and different regions where kayak fishing's alive and well, and welcome in these other areas and that are doing a lot of things. Like I think of KFNW up in the Pacific Northwest. Like you don't think of the Pacific Northwest as being a bass fishery, but that series is doing great things in the upper Midwest. There's a lot happening up there with Top Water series. So I think trying to tie in some of these regional events that are doing really great things to some of these larger events to just make it more inclusive. I also think investing in youth programs is a huge thing and an opportunity. We're seeing Bass and MLF invest in collegiate and high school programs. I think that's the next step for kayak fishing is we want to get the youth into the sport. And it makes a ton of sense because it's way more approachable and affordable for someone on a budget like a high schooler to get into competitive kayak fishing than it is for them to get into competitive bass boat fishing. So trying to figure out how we can get colleges and high schools involved in the competitive side will help us elevate the program even more. So those are my opinions.
Yeah, I think all that stuff is right on. And actually, the college thing, I think Drew Gregory saw that kind of years ago, and he actually started college kayak fishing. And the funny thing was back then, I don't think kayak fishing was where it is now to really support it. We saw a lot of guys come out for the saltwater. We did a saltwater side, and I helped run it with him. But it was, his thing. And for whatever reason, it was the stigma of, oh, that's a kayak and I want to be a bass boat angler. Now the saltwater guys had nothing. They had no collegiate fishing tournament whatsoever. So they kind of were like, heck yeah, they had no idea what they were doing. Like in a kayak, guys showed up that are now even on the Jackson team. I remember one of the guys showed up in a kayak he bought and didn't have a front hatch. He was using a center block as an anchor. I mean, just going out there and catching fish, right? Like, and he grew and bought a Jackson. He works with Fish and Tackle Unlimited and has been on the team and now has a boat and guides. And so, it is so important, I think, to reach younger people because it gives them something they can take with them, for the rest of their lives. Fishing is something you can do forever. It's not like, a sport that's going to be hard on your body and you're going to break down over time and not going to be able to go and, play basketball as hard as you used to or football or whatever. But with fishing, you can do that. I think kayak fishing, especially, you don't need a huge, amount of money to get into the sport. So I think getting people involved early, like you said, and then obviously, like you said, being more involved in the local regions. But I think a big thing too is to bring eyes to the sport more so than just people that are already buying kayaks, right? Like, how do we reach that bigger audience? And the way bass has done it and the way bass fishing in general has done it is created almost like a spectator sport. It's the NASCAR fishing, if you will. Like, people want to see those guys come up and cash those big checks. And I think that we're heading that right direction more so than we ever have, with more and more coverage and more and more things like this show here. Just get people talking about it and thinking about it and wanting to see, who these guys are, and with bass giving a platform and offering the tournaments, it's not going to happen overnight, but getting more eyes on the sport that way that are people that are not already kayak fishermen. That's where you're going to start seeing some of the sponsors come on board that have the money to take it to the next level, like the insurance companies like Geico or whatever, or the drink sponsors or whatever. That's where the money is for something like this to really, I think, grow to that next level. Because we have a limited amount to invest in it, and we want to invest in it and grow it. But as we get more and more eyes on it, I think it's going to be more valuable for other brands to dump money into it that have bigger budgets, and that'll allow us to just kind of snowball it. And the amount that it's grown in the past, 6 years, 5 years even, is just unreal. Like, I never thought I would see, double-digit checks being cashed.
Regularly, through a series. Yeah, it's crazy.
Fishing the IFA, like, to win the national championship, you're talking about like $3,000, $3,500. I finished fourth at it one year, the national level, and I think my check was like $600 or something like that, which I was super appreciative of. But I had to drive to Louisiana and stay in a hotel for 3 days And that was no pre-fishing. I couldn't afford to pre-fish, So, I mean, like now to be able to see 5th, 6th, 7th, all the way down into the 20th places at some of these events, cash decent checks. I mean, it's just, I don't know if I ever really thought it would happen, but to see it get here, I know it can get to that next level.
And just to speak to its growth and why I feel I'm a firm believer that this is growing and it's going to continue to grow is like Outdoor Sportsman Group, which is a huge media company that owns Sportsman's Channel, In Fisherman, Bow Hunter, Florida Sportsman, In Fisherman, all these titles that we know and love and subscribe to. They kicked off a new publication, a special publication called Kayak Fishing Fun last year. And they sold out of their print catalog and did a rerun, which is only the second time in their history as a company to ever do that for a print catalog, print magazine. And they're looking at opportunities and investments in production, TV production, and how they can push that out on some of their streaming networks and things like that. And like, that's huge. That's awesome. That to me is like that's telling me that, outside of the tournament side and the growth that we're experiencing there, that there's actual growth of the sport in general. And we'll start to see media attention and maybe some of these live stream opportunities come about when this continues to grow. And I think we're a few years out still, but we're headed in the right direction. I think there are things that we can do to help it and to expedite it. And I think the work that Jackson, that Old Town is doing, Hobie's doing with their BOS is only, growing the sport, and will continue to help it along to get to that point where people are cashing even bigger checks, able to maybe make a living out of this. And for us to see the notoriety be what we know that it could be.
We need fans. How do we get fans, Lambert?
Social media, man. Like social media is the number one ROI in marketing anywhere, as far as, just direct organic reach. People have to be involved on these social media platforms. If you want to pull in high school kids, that's how to do it. I mean, we were fishing Pickwick and had a couple high school guys come up. They were fishing a college tournament down there that just graduated, and they're like, "Hey, are you fishing the Hobie tournament?" We saw it on Instagram. Like, people follow that stuff, and that's how you get this next wave, this new demographic of anglers interested and involved in it, because they see the potential, but then they see the recognition. They see these companies like Z-Man, like Plano, like pushing the anglers. That's another thing, is these companies promoting the anglers, that will just multiply down the line to all of us. Like, the more these companies get involved promoting the guys that are promoting them, and I mean, Jameson and Ryan, that's to you guys too. I mean, the more people see that on social media, they see that content put out, they see that their own anglers are the face of these companies. That's how the fuse gets lit, and then you have a whole new wave of guys coming up, and they're not just thinking about, I want a 1 in 10,000 chance of being able to run a Toyota series or whatever it is. They're like, oh, like I actually have a lot better odds of making it on this kayak circuit and being able to earn some sort of income. So I think, putting that out there and letting these young anglers see it as they're coming up is a big deal.
Yeah, make people understand kayak fishing is not a stepping stone. It's the destination for a lot of people. This is where they want to be. It's not just some entry level deal. This is what they want to do.
And I think that was the mindset, though, of a lot of people and a lot of brands 10 years ago, is people looked at it as a stepping stone, or someone that couldn't afford a boat, or simply whatever. It was kind of made. I mean, I had buddies that made fun of me a little bit. They had the boat. Why don't you just get a boat? Well, I had a boat and I got rid of it, and I got a kayak, and now I have both. But the point is, it was the right tool for what I was doing. And once you realize that, and then see, what all you can do. I mean, you can literally take the same plastic boat offshore and catch a marlin, and then be up a river, the next day or so, fishing for smallmouth and stuff that you couldn't access without something like that. And when you see that, that realization happens, and you realize the potential of it, and then throw tournaments and events and the community and all that on top of it, it can just, it's easy to get swept up in it and to become a part of it. And I think that the more people that do it, obviously, the more it's going to grow.
Good stuff. Good stuff. We've been at this a long time, guys. It's been.
I'm sorry for running over. I knew this was going to be a good one, and it was.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Thank you both.
Man. You guys were dropping gold all night. The people watching, there were some great comments talking about how much valuable information was being shared. Unbelievable. Any parting shots? Anything you guys want to say before we wrap this thing up tonight?
Just thanks for having me on, you guys, and thanks for giving me a platform to talk about the show for a few minutes, and just keep doing what you guys are doing.
Yeah, same. Would love to connect with your folks. I mean, I do engage with you guys on social media, but if anybody wants to reach out or has any more to say or want to discuss Old Town or what we're doing, I'm happy to connect with you on Instagram or Facebook. Just reach out to me. But thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
You may get a DM from Cliff Allen.
Jameson, you're on point. You got Josh Evans, you got Russell Johnson, you got the squad on the team. Ryan, we need to talk. How do I get, number one, I've already got Jackson in the dugout. How do I get Old Town in the dugout? Number two, how do I get Cliff Allen on the Old Town team? I'm here for my people. That's what I'm here for. I'm the voice of the people here.
Cliff, you're welcome for those affordable props. I saw that comment and I just about lost it.
Hey, he's here. He will fight somebody over Old Town. He'll probably lose, but he'll fight somebody and he'll still talk trash afterwards.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff tonight. Unbelievable start to the 2022 podcast season. When you say, Mr. Lambert?
We're on pace to set a record here. We got about 9 minutes left till we blow it out of the water.
All right. Well, yeah, man, we're going to wrap this thing up. We'll get another guest queued up for next week, but I just want to thank you both for taking the time to do this tonight. And we'll wrap this thing up and do it again next week.
Sounds good. Congrats again, Jameson, and thank you to the Evangelist for leading us to the light tonight.
Thank you, guys.